Hello and welcome to Emergence, Leading from the Field. My name is Artemis Evangelidi and I am your host. This podcast shines a light on courageous leaders from around the world, leaders who are shaping the future in bold and inspiring ways. Moving beyond the boardroom, we feature authentic conversations with guests, the change makers, the visionaries, and innovators who are leading from experience, purpose, and heart from the field where transformation takes place. These are conversations with people who are listening deeply, acting boldly, and are doing their part to shape a more conscious and connected world. Our conversations will offer a rare glimpse into how our guests have overcome challenges while spearheading innovations that have enabled them to lead from the front lines. Be inspired as our guests share their journeys. Today, I am absolutely delighted to welcome a really good friend of mine, Kristine Morris. Kristine, throughout her career as a social worker, life coach, and meditation teacher, has gained extensive and diverse experience across multiple countries and industries. In 2019, Kristine founded the Change Maven, leading personal and professional development initiatives, facilitating workshops and retreats focused on empowerment and resilience, whilst also providing one-on-one coaching and managing outreach and marketing. Her passion and unique skill set has enabled Kristine to engage with diverse stakeholders and enhance program outcomes. At Elevate Aviation, Kristine leads the design, development, and delivery of leadership programs for women in the aviation industry. One of Kristine's passions is motivating and inspiring people to unlock their potential and discover their true greatness. She knows firsthand how powerful a group of inspired and inspiring women can be, and aims to create more of this in the world. She finds immense joy in witnessing individuals flourish and thrive in their personal and professional lives. Kristine believes that kindness is a superpower and aims to sprinkle kindness into the world whenever and wherever she can. Kristine, welcome. It's such an honor and a pleasure to have you here today.
Well, thank you for having me. I loved your introduction. I want to be friends with her.
Well, I'm lucky to say that I am. Kristine, I wanted to ask you, what inspired you to create the Change Maven back in 2019, and what a year
Mm.
to put that into motion,
Yeah,
given what was coming that we didn't know.
yeah, that we absolutely didn't know about. It was something that sat in my heart and my soul for almost a decade before I decided to actually step out into the world with it. Um, the words, the title, the Change Maven, really it came to me through I'm not sure what kind of divine inspiration, but it just came to me like a whisper that I'm the Change Maven. Um, the fact that I know that I am capable of helping people transform themselves, um, and in particular, working with women, that's always been a very clear focus for me. And I decided it was time to sort of plant my flag in the sand and say, here I am. I'm the Change Maven. This is what I do. This is what I'm supposed to do. And here we go. Yeah.
And how did that feel when you launched and then the events of 2020 came as
Yeah, it
quickly rolling in?
absolutely. So it was I think it was perfectly aligned with how where it was supposed to be. It showed me my capacity to pivot, and I'm not the only one.
Mm.
I know we've all really learned the importance of pivoting. Plans are fantastic, but if you get too stuck in them, then you lose sight of what you're trying to do. So for myself, I had really just started gaining momentum with workshops and retreats. And then, of course, all of this happened that we all know about. And I pivoted and I took everything online and I took everything virtually. And I found an incredible sense of connection even with people being afar. And that really has helped me to build on like my virtual, whether it's teaching or coaching, facilitating, whatever it is that I'm doing. It's not a limitation. We don't have to let it be a limitation if we can't be face to face with people. And I really learned
Mm.
that throughout that whole 2020 and forward time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of us went deeper into the online world in terms of connecting with people because we craved connection so much.
Yeah.
And it was the only avenue open to us. And actually, we forged some incredible connections during that time and long-lasting friendships. So
Yes.
it's actually not a limitation when you know how to use it properly and when you allow your own energy and field to kind of permeate into that space.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about so the coaching work and the facilitation that you've done with women through the Change Maven. What's
Mhm.
been one um, really powerful and memorable moment that kind of affirmed the path that you were on, where you said, "Okay, this is it. This is I am absolutely doing what I'm supposed to be doing. This is exactly
Mhm.
where I'm meant to be."
That's a great question. So, one that comes to mind for me is I was running, it was like a long weekend retreat. It was just a few days long, out at this beautiful lake house in sort of not quite northern Alberta in Canada. And I had a group of women there. There were 6 women there, and we were doing some journaling. They were doing some journaling with some prompts and so on. And I was sitting there outside with them. We were sitting around in a circle in the grass and seeing these women from all walks of life. Some were business owners, some were professors, a couple were stay-at-home moms. And every one of them, when they took enough time to go inward and listen to themselves, to that, that whisper of the heart, and seeing them literally, it was like little light bulbs, like, all these aha moments that happened almost collectively when they were given the space to take that time and go inward. And I felt that so profoundly because I created that space. Now they stepped into it, right? Everybody
Mm,
has to be a full participant for this experience to work. But the fact that I knew I could create these spaces for people to turn inward and to be able to hear these things that are always there, but are usually dormant inside of us, whether it
mm,
is a
mm.
personal development or whether it is a leadership or professional development thing, it's within us, and it's really just having the time and the space to let it emerge from us, and knowing that I can be kind of a conduit. I can help create that space for that to happen with people is very fulfilling and very empowering.
Yeah, I bet. And
Yeah.
before you did this work and before you kind of moved into the leadership development space and the personal development space, you were a social worker.
Yes.
How did you pivot from that role into this? I mean,
Mm.
there's a lot of alignment there, obviously, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
What made you decide to step away from social work in its more official kind of
True.
form?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there were a number of things. I would say one of the main sort of catalysts was knowing that what I was doing, although I was doing a good job with where I was at, um, I wasn't using the best parts of myself.
Mm,
And to recognize that. So when I talk about listening to these whispers of our heart, I say that from a sort of a personal perspective first, because I've done both. I've walked the path where I've not listened to the whispers of my heart, and I've felt the impacts and the repercussions of that. And then I've listened to the whispers of my
mm,
heart. So ultimately, what I wanted in social work was to be able to connect with people and help impact change, help people feel a sense of dignity and autonomy and respect. I worked primarily in child protection. I also worked in adolescent addictions and mental health. And I'm not a very big in the box kind of person, and it's a very in the box kind of job. So I found
Yeah.
that in and of itself very limiting. And I didn't feel like I was using the best parts of myself. And I was suffering because of it. My family was suffering because of it. I have two children. They were young at the time. And it was taking more out of me than what it was giving back. And so I did. I
Mm.
took some time and I went really dormant and I really listened to what is it that fulfills me and what is it that I can contribute best to this world? So I'm a big believer in this. I'm a big believer that if we're not leading with our passion and with a sense of purpose, somewhere along the line, we're going to hit a dead end. And I kind of
Yeah.
hit a dead end. And so when I
Yeah.
decided that it was not worth it, but still taking
Mm.
aspects of my social work, and basically, Artemis, I spent about 10 years playing around with, does this feel right? Does that feel right? I started to do more university education in the field of adult education and instructional design. Found I really love instructing, I love facilitating. Taking that relational piece that's so strong in my social work education and applying it to different areas. And I really just sort of made myself a life experiment and so tried a
Mm.
number of different things that I just kept pulling from what are my strengths here? Where can I contribute best? Where can I make more of a difference and still not drain my own cup in doing so? And that's what brought me to the Change Maven and to the leadership programs that I'm now creating for my organization, Elevate Aviation. So it's really come to a place where now at 56 years of age, I feel like I've kind of taken all these best parts of myself and my myriad of experiences and jobs and so on, and I've finally turned it into something of what it's supposed to be. And that's what you see today.
I absolutely love that. And gosh, you gave so many pearls of wisdom just then, that I'm going to ask you to dig a little bit deeper into, because I know that we all go through, I mean, every single one of us has reached a point in their, or many points, or many times in their careers and their lives where they've said, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this for
Mhm.
me? Am I satisfied with this? Is there more, or am I using all of my passions and talents in the right way? And sometimes we're able to navigate that on our own, and we can, if we have tools already in our tool belt that we can use to go into stillness, to go into presence, to,
Mhm.
you mentioned before the journaling and allowing the whispers of the heart to come through, that process. But for some of our listeners who may be at that junction right now, or at that crossroads, and who perhaps haven't had this experience before, perhaps it's the first time for them, what are some tricks of the trade that you would share with them when they're facing this dead end?
Mhm. So, what I would say to them is, first of all, it's very normal to feel like if you do hit this dead end, to have the ego's going to come in and say, oh my gosh, you're failing. You're supposed to do this. You've done this education. You've done this work. You have to do this. What will people think? All that kind of stuff, right? But very, that's very empty. It's very ego driven. It's very empty. I
Mm.
love this saying, and I'm not going to quote it directly, but I'm going to quote it generally. So Carlos Castaneda said, "Does this path have a heart? If
Mm.
your path has a heart, then follow this path. If the path does not have a heart, there is no shame and no failure in turning away from that path." And I believe that to the core of my being. And that's what I would say to people. Number one, ask yourself in your quietest of moments, does this path have a heart? And you know the answer because we always know the answer. If the
Yeah.
path does not have a heart, then find a way to start to pivot. And by that, I'm not suggesting people blow up their lives. I'm not suggesting, quit your job, run away, go do an eat, pray, love. Like, fine, that's great. That's lots of fun. but there's ways to do it without blowing up your life. There's ways to do it while keeping yourself and the people around you intact and safe and still taking care of everything you need to take care of. And that's the
Mm,
key, I think, is really come up with a plan, come up with a good plan, make some goals, get yourself a good coach, and in all seriousness, like write everything down that you're feeling, write yourself a list. What am I good at? What makes my heart sing? Right? What makes
mm,
my heart
mm.
sing? For one person, it will be something totally different than for another person. Really sit down with that without a lens of judgment for yourself and just start to get curious. That's what I would say to people
Yeah.
as a starting point.
When you gave that quote, I got
Mm.
goosebumps, and I
Uh,
thought, oh my gosh, how can you capture a whole life's process in one sentence? And there you
yeah,
did, right? And it's so true.
yeah.
Does it have heart? What a powerful way to look at it.
Mm.
Um, when you're exploring all of these things with your clients, and when you're allowing them the space to do this work, do you find that it's easy for people to do they have that light bulb moment where they say, oh, this is actually something that I can lean into and do? Or do you find that there's resistance when people are in this confused state?
I find there tends to be more resistance the more training and money and time that people have put into the thing that they thought they should be doing.
Right. Yeah.
That's where I
Mm,
find that there's the most resistance. Um, and sometimes people are just not quite ready to get there. And that's okay too, because that
mm,
is their process. I'm a really firm believer in allowing people to make their own choices. I am not so egotistical as to think that I can actually exert any influence over people's decisions. I really am there to sort of shine the light on the paths and say, which path do you think you should take? And hold up a mirror to them to say, how does this feel to you? That's what I'm really
mm.
good at. Um, when people are willing to step in and do the work, they do have aha moments. And it might be
Yeah.
something that will take years for them to fully flesh out and fully make happen. And that's okay. That's okay because that's life. Life is what's happening every day while we're doing all of the things. You don't have to wait till that happens to be happy or to feel complete. You can find ways to bring that satisfaction and that joy into your life on an everyday basis, which is also something I
Mm,
think is really important to work on with people. Um, I find it really sad when people are waiting for whatever moment to happen or whatever achievement to reach whatever achievement before they allow themselves to feel joy and satisfaction.
yeah.
So that's another piece of it is exploring that as well.
Yeah. I find the joy piece is the key.
Hmm.
It's in our societies, the way that we live, and the conditioning that we've received. Joy was really taken from us at a very early age and dangled like the carrot, right? It's
Yeah,
do this and you can have it, do that and you can have it, have this and you
yeah,
can have it. And every time we do more, have more, try to achieve more, we find ourselves chasing this proverbial carrot because
yeah,
that's not where the joy comes from. And
no.
reclaiming our right to joy
Mhm.
is one of the first steps in reclaiming our authentic power. Being able to, as you said, I don't worry about the training and the degrees and the money and the debt and the whatever it is that I acquired to be able to have this piece of paper or these qualifications. That's great. But when
Mhm.
it's my heart's not in it anymore, I'm
Mhm.
chasing the joy. I'm not going to chase the
Mhm.
credentials and, stick with those because that's what I'm supposed to do, or that's what people will, expect of me. I find the
Yeah,
joy is such a missing link.
yeah,
Um, so Kristine, you and I run retreats.
yeah,
The listeners who know us know this. and the listeners who don't know us will obviously now they know. And you and I have spoken at length, time and time again, about why we do this, why we choose to hold space in this way for women to come
Mhm.
to our retreats and immerse themselves in the opportunity to go deeper. For
Mhm.
you, what's one of the if you could summarize what you walk away with after each retreat, what would that be in
Mhm.
a sentence?
Mhm. Coming back to self.
Mm,
It's a coming back to self, and anyone who knows you and your work, which they are listening to you, so they know it, conscious leadership is it just embedded in absolutely everything that you do. Um, That's one of the things that drew me to working with you as well, because that cannot be underestimated. The importance of presence and being in the right now. And I think that's one of the gifts that people get when they come and they join one of our retreats is that they get the gift of coming back to themselves, to getting grounded.
mm,
We are in such an unconscious, chaotic, unsettled world that it is so easy to let yourself get caught in that, as you know.
yeah,
If you don't ground yourself, if you don't set the roots down and really get yourself there solid with the earth, literally, figuratively, you will get swept away.
yeah,
So, being really intentional about giving yourself space to come and to do that is probably one of the biggest gifts that we can give ourselves.
yeah. I love that. Absolutely. It's I often feel that sometimes we're standing and it's the eye of the storm. We're standing and we're grounded and, like a tree with roots really deep into the earth. And as you said, figuratively and literally,
Mhm.
if you put your feet on the ground and feel that connection with Mother Earth. But, we're standing and around us is this swirling and this noise and this attempts to pull you into the latest drama, the latest saga, the latest, opinion or whatever it may be. And the ability to be able to stay grounded and observe all of this happening around you is at the core of conscious leadership. It's at the core of conscious leadership. And you develop leadership programs for women through the organization. And if you get swept up in the chaos, you're not leading anymore from the field. And arguably sometimes that's the leadership that happens in a boardroom where there's the constant, you know, this is the process, this is what we've always done, these are the procedures we follow, this is the methodology that we use, but no one actually stops to step into the field for a
Yeah.
minute and say, actually, instead of what we know, what wants to emerge?
Yes.
And I feel that, all the retreat work and even the one-on-one coaching, that's the invitation. The invitation is come and step into the field for a little bit,
Yeah.
leave all of that behind. That's all great and that's
Mhm.
fine. But just take a moment to try something new. And you used the word before, and it's one of the most important words. Be curious.
Yes.
Be curious. What is possible? We get caught up in thinking that we have all the answers.
Yeah.
These are the only options. And you and I have spoken about this before. These are the only options. There is no other way. I have to choose one of these paths.
Mhm.
Actually, that is such a lie.
Yeah.
In fact, you have a myriad of options that you haven't even turned your mind to, because when you're leading from the brain, you're leading from a predictive brain that only knows what it's experienced before. But if you lead from the field, you're able to allow what wants to emerge to emerge. And I think that what you just described and that ability to hold space for someone to step into that field is a gift. And you
Yeah.
do it so beautifully. I've seen you in
Mm.
action. I've seen you do your work. I've seen you develop these programs and hold space for people. And it is just such a beauty to watch. And it's such a gentle invitation for people to explore with curiosity what could be
Mhm.
possible.
Mhm.
I want to ask you something though now, and I'm curious to uh, hear your insights on this and what you're sensing in the field. Where are our men at? Right, we're doing
Mhm.
all this work with women, and I know you
Yeah.
focus a lot on women, and even in the aviation industry, your focus is on women.
Yeah.
Where are our men?
You know what? That's a really great question. Um, wow, that's a really great question. I feel like, well, first of all, I don't know where they all are. I don't know where they all are. I know there are many amazing men who are doing amazing work as well. There's no question. Why do I work with women is maybe
Mm,
a more informed answer I can give you is I feel like the there's been such an imbalance for so long in terms of who's at the table. I
mm,
feel like the work that I am doing personally, the work that we do together, because together we work with women, is to help balance, bring a bit of balance back. I think when there's more balance, when there's more of us, women in leadership, women in conscious leadership, then I believe it's time to invite them in and dance together.
mm,
Because I just don't think there's enough critical mass of us yet to be able to play in the field together as meaningfully as we could.
mm. I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I do work with men in my coaching work, and
Hmm.
one of the beautiful things that I have found is that the men who come to me for this work, and I'm sure to other coaches and other people who are in a similar space, are the men that are craving that balance themselves. They're looking to
Yes.
find the balance within of, the divine feminine, the divine masculine. We
Yeah.
are all carrying that. And
Yes.
when one is out of whack from the other, that's where we find ourselves going, oh, this doesn't feel right. And the men who are
Yes.
coming to me are the men who are saying, actually, I don't want to live like that anymore. There's a different way. There's
Mhm.
something missing in me. What is it that's missing in me? And it's just your untapped potential. It's your
Yes.
untapped potential to lean into all those beautiful qualities that come together when you're in balance. So I love that
Yeah.
you refer to that as, finding that balance and that equilibrium to
Hmm.
bring people up as a collective, but also internally. It's part of the work.
Yes.
Um, so you sprinkle kindness everywhere you go. This is your superpower.
That
You
is.
bring it to the table. It's always in a little bottle, and off you go, sprinkling it away.
That's right.
What, how has that philosophy How has that philosophy guided your life? What does that mean? To sprinkle kindness everywhere and
You
have
know,
kindness as your superpower.
it genuinely is. I'll tell you, I'll give you a couple of little examples. And so to an outsider, they may hear this and think, this woman's whack. But actually I'm not. I intentionally sprinkle kindness. So when we talk about the world being so unconscious and chaotic and so on, one of my favorite ways of doing this is when I am out in public. If I'm interacting, doing a cash transaction with somebody at a restaurant or a shop, or I'm holding the door for someone, or they hold the door for me, or whatever it is, I intentionally connect with them. I'm not the crazy woman who starts telling them all my life story, but I will look at the cashier and say, how is your day today? And 9 out of 10 times they're so shocked that somebody asks them that.
Mm,
And if somebody holds the door for me, I look at them in the eye and I say, thanks for holding the door. And they look, oh. I actually have this really odd thing that I do is I go out to, in Edmonton, where I live, is one of the largest shopping malls in the world. It's crazy. I love to go out on Christmas Eve during the day, the last day of shopping, and I walk around and I make a point of making eye contact with people and smiling and saying, Christmas. Now, the odd person, I'm not going to lie, looks at me like, bugger off, lady. But for the most part, it is so beautiful to see how people respond. And I encourage people, try it. If you're walking down the street, walking your dog, make eye contact with the person walking in the opposite direction. Say hello. Like safety is another thing. I'm not talking about, jumping in people's cars here. I'm talking about connecting human to human. And because when you start really noticing it, you can't unsee it.
Mm,
And it's
mm,
sad. It's sad how much we don't connect. Yes, you have to be respectful of people and their boundaries and all that, but there is no reason why you can't make eye contact with somebody and say hello.
mm.
It feels beautiful inside and it sprinkles kindness elsewhere too.
It does. And we're in a loneliness epidemic, and the
Yeah.
research shows how, loneliness is increasing. And loneliness doesn't mean that you're not surrounded by people, right?
No.
It's loneliness is the feeling, the state of feeling that you are alone.
Yes.
And it has such huge, huge health repercussions, and not
Yeah.
only for our mental health, but our physical health. It
Yeah.
increases the rate of cardiovascular disease and increases the rate of cancer. And I mean, it's just phenomenal. And it
Mhm.
goes to show how important human connection is. We are beings that need connection. We can
Yes.
only thrive on connection. If you leave us without connection, we will wither. And that's
Yes.
what the research shows us. And that's that
Yes.
beautiful going into the mall on Christmas Eve to brave the chaos and sprinkle kindness is such a beautiful thing, because again, people are caught up in the stress and the narrative and the story and the pressures
Mm.
of whatever it may be. And I've just finished work and I have to go and do this. And it's a
Yeah.
moment to pause. It's a moment to breathe and remember our common humanity, and
Yeah.
that we're all in this together, and that there is a connection that's there when we're
Yeah.
when we're ready to embrace it. So
Yes.
how does kindness show up in leadership for you?
Mm.
We talk about compassionate leadership and conscious
Yeah.
leadership a lot. I'd love to hear your
Mm.
experience with kindness in your everyday work, in
Hmm.
being a leader.
Hmm. So kindness, I think it is really underestimated in a professional setting. I think it for a very long time has been dismissed. We've all heard the refrain, don't mistake my kindness for weakness. Kindness doesn't mean
Mm,
weakness. Kindness
mm,
does mean compassion to me. It does mean empathy. Kindness means extending respect and dignity to people, which I think is so important as a leader. And as somebody who works for a leader, who follows a leader, to know that your leader cares about who you are, what you believe in. They don't have to be your friend, of course, but to treat you with the respect and inherent dignity that every human being deserves, to me, is an essential part of leadership. Because if you're
mm,
not leading with that quality of caring about the people you are leading, caring about the outcomes, caring about the organization, and that to me all means kindness, then you're missing a really important aspect of your leadership. And what you just said about the loneliness epidemic, this is not just in our personal lives. When we step into our day-to-day work in our professional lives and we don't feel a sense of belonging, because we are creatures that need relationship. Everything's relationship. If I choose a banker that I'm going to work with, there's a relationship I have with this person. whether or not they know anything about me, Kristine, at home. So to be able to bring that element of, I am going to create a space where we can have this professional relationship where I am looking out for the best of you and you're looking out for the best of me, it is a win-win. It really is.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm, absolutely. Yeah. So, with that in mind, what would you say is the kind of leadership that the world needs most right now? And how can we each embody that if there was the magic wand could come and
Mhm.
say, this is it, embody it now? What would that look like?
I think the ideal leadership would be leaders using the best of their strengths in their leadership capacity. I think there is a role for everybody. Not everybody should be the CEO. Not everybody should be the account controller. Not everybody should be the social media manager. I
Mm,
think it's important that we develop leaders who are leading from their strengths and to build teams of people who are also leading from their strengths. When I say leading, leading themselves, leading whoever is under
yeah.
them. It is absolutely essential to me that we get out of this idea of the bureaucratic sort of notion of leadership is, I get my business degree and I go into leadership. I want to see people really evolving, starting from recognizing what is it that I'm good at and start building
Mm,
leadership capacity in those areas. That's what I want to see. I want to see leadership that is responsive, that is flexible, that also has extremely high expectations and standards because this isn't about I love my analogies, but this isn't about like the 1970s Coca-Cola. I like to teach the world to sing. Like, that's not what I'm talking about here. We need leaders who are strong and powerful and assertive. We need all of that. So
mm,
again, I really want to dispel the notion that kindness or compassion means somehow being a weaker leader. It doesn't.
mm,
You can be a
mm,
very definitive, strong, driven leader while still paying attention to what the people under you need and what your organization needs and all that. You can do both.
mm.
You really can.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and it is conscious leadership. It
Yeah.
really does come down to conscious leadership and conscious teams. Yeah.
Yeah. And I often say when I'm running or facilitating workshops or running training sessions, or even when I'm having those difficult conversations in organizations with people, and I say, don't mistake conscious leadership for weak leadership.
Right.
Conscious leadership it's actually tough because it requires you to have the difficult conversations. It
Yeah.
requires you to address the elephant in the room. And
Yeah.
you do all of that with kindness and with compassion, but you do it, right?
That's
There's
right.
no hiding
Yeah.
behind your finger. And that's hiding behind our fingers and using that authoritative, um, archaic approach to leading is actually
Mhm.
completely unconscious because you're
Yes.
not reading the room, you're not tapping into what people need, you're not understanding relational energy and how that impacts on people
No.
well-being, our mental health in the workplace, our
Yeah.
right to feel safe in a workplace, um, engaging people. Disengagement
Yes.
is the disengagement scores are on the rise again, which means
Yes.
people are feeling more and more disengaged with where they are and what they're doing. And we know that our workplaces are a key component of our well-being. It's a
Yes.
fluid relationship. We are as humans, we're creative. We're constantly creating things. We're constantly engaging
Mhm.
in things to create, whether that's in our own businesses, in when we're working for someone else, whatever it is, we are creating constantly. And when we feel disengaged and we feel that our work has no meaning or it's not hitting
Yeah.
the mark or it's not respected, then we start
Yes.
to feel, that we're not respected and we're not valued, and then we start to disengage. And that's a
Yes.
very dangerous, slippery slope into, you know, poor well-being markers across physical and physiological and mental well-being. So
Absolutely.
as we get closer to the end of our beautiful conversation together, I want to invite you to share your own standing in the field. What's
Mm.
emerging for Kristine right now? What do you see coming to you that you will dip your toes into moving forward?
What's really coming to me right now is the courage to engage in or to start up these kinds of conversations. The
Mm,
courage to step into the circles of leadership and say, we need to look at doing this differently. We need to bring in the human relational elements. We need to make sure people feel valued, that people feel seen and heard. It's very easy to smile and nod and, not ruffle feathers. But that's what's really emerging for me is a sense of urgency. And I say that word, even as I'm using the word urgency, I hesitate to use it because I don't mean a sense of panic, but a
mm,
sense of urgency in that it is time. It is time. And there's so many pockets around the world that are doing amazing work around leadership, around conscious leadership, around conscious individuals. So when we talked about that critical mass earlier, I feel like the more we have these conversations, and so that's what's emerging in me is to sort of raise my commitment to having these conversations that much more. Because the more we do
mm.
this, the more that critical mass, we will reach it. We will reach it sooner because it is happening. The rumblings, those beautiful rumblings, they're there, right? It's
Yeah.
definitely evolving.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And we could use more of those conversations in the field.
Yeah.
Kristine, thank you so much for being with me today. Now, I will be sharing all of your details for our listeners to be able to connect with you um, after this conversation. But what's the best? Where's the best place to reach you? And what's coming up? What have you got coming up that you want to
Oh
share
my
with our
goodness.
listeners?
Wow. Well, the best place to reach me is probably by email right now. I would say by
Mm,
email, or on my social media, on my LinkedIn or my Instagram. What is coming up is, well, you and I are running a retreat in Greece in September.
we
Um,
sure are.
a very, very magical week. And there's a bit of a pre-retreat pilgrimage as well, where we are inviting 9 women to really go deep into their purpose and presence. And again, that invitation to come back to self, right? So
Mm,
that's
mm,
a big, big one that is coming up. Very excited about that. I am in the process of launching an emerging leaders program with my organization, Elevate Aviation. So, taking young women who aspire to get into leadership, and that
mm.
has to be one of my most exciting groups to work with, is when people are they're just dipping their toes into it, because those are going to be our future leaders. So that's
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
exciting to be able to coach them and work with them as they move into these early stages of leadership and being able to see the possibility of a different way to lead right from the start, not having to unlearn, but just be that blank slate going into it. That's really exciting for me. And I'm
How
taking
blessed
some.
are they that
It's
they have
very
you to do
exciting.
that?
It's very exciting. And I am taking a few more one-on-one coaching clients as well. So if anybody
Wonderful.
is ever interested, they can just reach out and we can have a chat.
Wonderful. Well, I'll be
Yeah.
sharing all of your details, and I invite our listeners to definitely reach out and connect with Kristine. She is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful soul, and I'm so honored to call her my friend. Kristine, thank you so much for today. It has been a fabulous conversation.
Thank you. Appreciate it.